Last year, I tested the Michelin Pilot Sport Summer Tyre against the Pilot Sport All-Season 4 and the XI Snow in the snow to find out exactly what the differences are between the three tyres. Of the hundreds of thousands of people who watched it, about 90% of you asked me why the CrossClimate 2 wasn't included. So I'm back at Keweenaw Research Institute in North Michigan, and I have the Michelin CrossClimate 2. I also have the Michelin Pilot Sport All-Season 4 and the XI Snow again, and we're going to find out exactly where the CrossClimate 2 sits between these two tyres in snow performance. And to go one better, we're going to move on to South Carolina, where we're going to test these three tyres in the dry and wet and include the Michelin Pilot Sport 4S to get a really good overview of what tyre's best at what. Let's wait no longer, let's go get testing. Snow handling. Now, the slowest tyre on test was the Michelin Pilot Sport All-Season 4. It was always going to be. And let's not forget, slowest is relative because the Pilot Sport All-Season 4 has the least snow optimization of the three tyres we're testing. And let's not forget, last year it was still 70 odd seconds a lap faster than the Pilot Sport 4S, a summer tyre. So it's significantly faster than a summer tyre. And of all my testing, it's always one of the fastest ultra high performance all season tyres. So let's not, when I'm saying slowest, let's not think bad of the All-Season 4. It's exceptional. What's it like to drive? Well, as I've discovered every time I've driven it, it's just one of the nicest tyres to drive on snow. The grip window as you're sliding is just, it's got such a wide range of grip. It allows you to really play with the car and really feel confident. And the brakes are amazing, the traction's amazing. Like, it's just a fantastic ultra high performance all season tyre. Moving to the CrossClimate 2. Now, this was nearly 10 seconds faster than the All-Season 4, and that makes it, in my head, thinking about last year, probably twice as fast around here as the summer tyre, which is incredible considering the CrossClimate 2 is an all-weather tyre, not a full winter tyre. How did it feel to drive? Well, it wasn't quite as direct and as darty and as precise as the All-Season 4, but it's not meant to be. What it did give you was a huge increase on brakes especially. It allowed you to really push the car into the corner and feel confident that everything was just going to collect up so you could play. Like I said, it wasn't quite as sporty or dynamic or as nice as the All-Season 4, but that's not its intention. And the grip it had in these snowy conditions was quite frankly mind-blowing. Moving to the XI Snow. Now, let's not forget, this is the only tyre fully designed to work in these conditions. And while it was, I say only, around 6 seconds a lap faster than the CrossClimate 2, 6 seconds is still mighty when you're pedaling a 4,000 pound Tesla around the track. What it gave you was just so much confidence to do whatever you wanted. It was a tyre with such a round grip circle. It's so nice after driving on tyres designed to be used year round to get on a tyre designed to be run in the winter, because the XI Snow, you felt like a finished rally master. It felt like a studded tyre. You could just do anything you want. Chuck it into the corner, no problem. Oh, what's that? You've gone in too fast? Don't worry, the tyre will save you. What's that? You've missed your braking point? No, that's no problem. The XI Snow will have you. So the full winter tyre shows its credentials at being incredible, but that's not to take anything away from the CrossClimate 2 or even the Pilot Sport All-Season 4. These two tyres, I'm so impressed. I'm impressed with the grip of the CrossClimate 2, the safe feeling the CrossClimate 2 gives you, and I'm really impressed with the sportiness and the enjoyment the All-Season 4 gives you.
Snow traction and snow braking shows an even bigger delta between the tyres, with the Michelin XI Snow having a commanding lead, but the CrossClimate 2 still performing very impressively for an all-weather tyre. How is this going to change in the dry and wet? Let's find out.
For a change, I'm going to present... Who says Teslas are boring? For a change, I'm going to present dry and wet together. And I was going to give you some excuse about the fact it was raining. It's not. It's partly because this Tesla is so grippy around what is a very tight wet handling course, there's no way I can think and talk while keeping this thing on the track. And partly because there is a near perfect inverse between the snow performance and the dry and wet performance. I guess if you're a regular viewer of the channel, that's not going to come as a surprise to you. So you're here for the subjective differences and the data. So let's get to it. Teslas are fun, man. Teslas can be fun. Subjectively, everything is pretty much in line with what we expected. So you won't be surprised to know that the Pilot Sport 4S was the grippiest tyre in the dry and wet, and was the most subjectively sporty, let's say. So it had the quickest steering, it had the most dynamic handling, and it felt like an absolute monster on the brakes. However, the Pilot Sport All-Season 4 did manage to pip it in wet braking, which was a bit of a surprise to me, because in wet handling, the Pilot Sport 4S did feel a bit more direct, but the S4 beat it. It was only 1.4% off, which is very, very close in terms of the test. And we were braking around 66 Fahrenheit, which is around 19-20 degrees centigrade, which is kind of the operating window for both of these tyres. So that's how the data was. The Pilot Sport All-Season 4 was a little bit behind in terms of steering precision and turning speed, but it was closer, and I think this is what a lot of people have been wondering. It was closer to the Pilot Sport 4S than it was the CrossClimate 2. There was a little bit more hydroplaning on the Pilot Sport All-Season 4 in the wet, and it did pick up a little bit more understeer in both the dry and wet, but it was impressively close considering the difference in snow performance between the two tyres, between the 4S and the AS4. It's astronomically big in the snow, but in the dry and wet, it's really not. Very impressive. I thought the All-Season 4 was going to be worse in the dry and wet than it was. The 4S obviously did take the heat a little bit better with dry handling. The compound on the AS4 did get a bit too hot and squirrely on the second lap, but this isn't something you're ever going to experience in the road. And if you're thinking about doing a track day, obviously you're going to pick the 4S. So, I mean, respectable performance, impressive performance by the All-Season 4. The extra snow ability of the CrossClimate 2, unsurprisingly, didn't come for free. Sadly, it didn't come for free. And that was slightly reduced grip in the dry and wet, and a little bit more understeer, and just slightly less steering precision. You didn't really notice it in the wet handling as much, but in the dry, you could really feel there was a bigger delay to the steering, with the car starting to turn after you turned. But the CrossClimate 2 isn't meant to be an ultra high performance tyre. It's not meant to be a sports tyre. So if I was grading them in terms of sportiness, which I know some of you are interested in because I am, the Pilot Sport 4S is obviously the benchmark. It's the 10. The Pilot Sport All-Season 4, 9.5. It's pretty close. And then the CrossClimate 2 would be a 7.75 and 8. So you've got the Pilot Sport 4S here, the All-Season 4, and then the CrossClimate 2 here. But it's not trying to be a sports tyre. And the lack of sportiness gave you back in what was a very easy tyre to drive fast. In the dry and in the wet, the understeer primary is very safe. You knew where the tyre was going to put you, and as long as you just gave it a little bit less of aggressiveness, it was absolutely fantastic and very impressive considering it's a huge step up in snow performance. And finally, the XI Snow. Well, as this was the best tyre in the snow, you couldn't guess what it means for the dry and wet. It had the least grip. But this tyre is so far out of its comfort zone, bearing in mind it's a warm day for dry and wet testing. It's too hot for this tyre at the best of times, and this is a near 500 horsepower, 4,000 pound battery. It was honestly my favourite in this dry. I know that sounds ridiculous, but it didn't have the most grip, but fun isn't about grip. Fun's about understandable progressive sliding. And you could go into corners on this Tesla and just absolutely kick it sideways and slide around and have the most fun ever. I'm not recommending you take the Michelin XI Snow on a track day, but if you do, honestly, you're going to enjoy it. As for the performance of the tyre, yes, it was below the rest of the tyres on test. Yes, it had less wet grip and dry grip than the CrossClimate 2, but it did have more snow grip. And if you've been keeping up with the channel, I have recently tested the category of tyres the XI Snow fits in, and it had the best wet performance, the highest aquaplaning resistance, one of the best dry performances, and it joint won the test. So in its category of tyres, the XI Snow is utterly fantastic. This is right, we don't run winter tyres year round.
Finally, a few things we've not yet talked about, and at this point I should say that I'm testing the North American version of the CrossClimate 2, and while the grip levels between the European and North American versions are essentially identical, the US version is slightly more optimised for wear, which means its rolling resistance values are higher than the European version. Keep that in mind. The Michelin XI Snow actually leads the way in rolling resistance, meaning it will use the least gas of all the tyres, with quite a big gap to the second place Pilot Sport 4S. This is a very impressive tyre in rolling resistance. The Pilot Sport All-Season 4 is close behind, and then it's the US spec CrossClimate 2. Wear almost reverses the order, based on the treadwear warranties offered in the US, which should easily be achievable in the real world. The CrossClimate 2 will cover at least 60,000 miles, the Pilot Sport All-Season 4 45,000 miles, the Xi Snow is warranted to 40,000 miles and I'm told is the only winter tyre on the market with a mileage warranty, and the Pilot Sport 4S is warranted to 30,000 miles. Due to the differing tread patterns led by the design requirements of the tyres, hydroplaning does vary. For deeper water, summer tyres usually perform very well and winter tyres less so. And we can expect the PS AS4 and the CrossClimate 2 to be very close to each other and sit in between the summer and winter tyres. It will likely be the same story with noise, but the noise levels and the comfort levels overall should be very close between the four tyres. Now we have all the data about the tyres, what have we learned? Starting with the Michelin Pilot Sport 4S, the ultra high performance tyre. This tyre performed exactly as you would expect. It's useless by design in the snow, but that gives it the lead in the dry and wet, both in terms of grip and perhaps more importantly for drivers, subjectively. The steering response was tighter than any other tyre on test. It reacted quickly to your inputs and it really wanted to turn, making this the tyre you'd fit if you really want to enjoy the road and live in an area that either never sees snow or very cold weather, or have a second set of wheels with winter tyres fitted. The Michelin Pilot Sport All-Season 4, the ultra high performance all-season tyre. What an impressive product. I was always under the impression this category of tyre sacrificed quite a bit of wet and dry grip in order to provide the snow performance, and while it couldn't quite match the 4S in outright grip, especially in the dry, it was far closer than I expected it to be. While of course the snow performance couldn't match the XISO or even the CrossClimate 2 where it's quite far off in traction, the 4% drop in dry braking compared to a summer tyre was rewarded with a 400% better snow braking and over 700% better snow traction than a summer tyre. The numbers don't do it justice. Go watch last year's video comparing these two on snow. I actually span on the way to the circuit on the summer tyre and the PS All-Season 4 was just a joy to drive. Dynamically, you did also lose out a little to the PS4S in the dry and wet, but it was more sporty feeling than the CrossClimate 2. You probably wouldn't want to keep the Pilot Sport All-Season 4 on your car year round in a heavy winter climate, but if you want a sporty feeling tyre that has a safety net if you get caught out in the snow or cold weather, this is a really capable option, and I can definitely see why the US loves this category of tyre. If you're European, feel free to complain in the comments below as you can't buy this tyre, it's not available in Europe, and after this test I can't tell you why anymore. Maybe it's time to start lobbying the tyre companies to bring this category of tyre to Europe. As for the CrossClimate 2, the all-weather tyre, if you've been wondering how good this tyre is in the snow compared to the Pilot Sport All-Season 4 or the Xi Snow, now you have the answer. It is hugely impressive, never more than 7% behind the soft compound winter tyre and significantly ahead of it in the dry and wet. As with the subjective gap between the Pilot Sport 4S and the All-Season 4, concentrating on the data only tells half the story. The Xi Snow is certainly more dynamic in the snow, but the CrossClimate 2 holds its own with a safe balance and excellent secure braking. You're losing out in terms of sporty handling to the summer and the ultra high performance all-season tyre, but as I've said before, it's not meant to be a sports tyre. I actually charted all four of these tyres across the dry, wet and snow, and the line between the three grip categories for the CrossClimate 2 was essentially straight. If there was ever a definition of an all-weather tyre, this is it. As for the Xi Snow, this is an extreme winter tyre and it does extreme winter stuff extremely well. After all, it won my extreme winter tyre test this year. That's a lot of extremes. That does mean it can't match the rest of the tyres in the dry and wet, but that's the nature of this category of tyre. To get that extra 10% in the snow and usable grip in ice, you have to give up grip in the dry and wet. It's just physics at the moment. But if you live in a region which has those sorts of winters, it's definitely worth the trade-off. Finally, Michelin asked me if I wanted to try the new Michelin Defender 2 in the dry and wet on the Tesla Model 3 Performance, which has an 80,000 mile treadwear warranty. 80,000 miles and relatively low rolling resistance. What? Which makes it perfect for EVs. If you're considering buying this tyre, I can tell you that it worked really well with the Tesla and it felt quick and nimble with good predictable grip. A tyre I really want to test properly in the future, hopefully against its competitors. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Any questions, please do ask below. And as always, safe motoring.
If you'd like to take your tyre geekery to the next level, you can now join Tyre Reviews on Reddit.